Official Tonya Harding will be skating on the Olympic ice. A deal was worked out with her attorneys and the U.S. Olympic Committee last night. Harding is expected to arrive Wednesday here, and it's also been reported that she and Kerrigan have declined the option of working out at separate rinks. And now for more on this continuing saga, let's go over to Jim Nance, who has a couple of visitors. Jim?
Thank you. Special visitors at that. We welcome Christine Brennan from the Washington Post, Phil Hirsch of the Chicago Tribune, and Ira Burko of the New York Times. Christine, what was your reaction last night to the announcement?
Well, it wasn't really surprising in the sense that this has been such a distraction. The U.S. Olympic Committee has been very concerned about it. On the other hand, you do have to wonder about the precedent that's set. If an athlete can avoid a hearing, and that's all this was going to be, just a hearing, by getting a couple lawyers to file a suit and threaten this organization, you wonder about the rules of that organization. I think the USOC's got a lot of checking to do on its rules in the future.
Well, what the judge said was that everyone is entitled, has a right to a fair and impartial hearing. And Tonya Harding's position, or her lawyer's position, was that she wasn't going to get a fair and impartial hearing from the USOC because they were acting as judge and jury. So I think that's the aspect of it.
I'm glad that the legal folderol is over and the circus has begun. As far as I'm concerned, my reaction was 3 cheers. This is one of the greatest stories I've ever had the opportunity to cover.
Yeah, but you know what I wonder about, too, is Nancy Kerrigan. I mean, you've got to keep in mind the victim here, and that is Kerrigan. And now here comes Tonya Harding, and I understand your point, Ira, very clearly. But you've got Nancy Kerrigan now, who has to deal with Tonya Harding now, and I wonder about the precautions. I know the U.S. Olympic Committee is concerned and wants to do some things about it.
Yeah, but it would have been interesting if it turns out that, as Tonya Harding says, she is absolutely innocent of any wrongdoing, and if that were the case and she weren't allowed to skate, then Tonya Harding too would have been a victim.
You know, you've really, in the Times, Ira, you've really been a staunch defender of the American principle here for the last month. Did you really agree, though, that this was the right thing to do at this time?
I think absolutely it was the right thing to do. And it seemed that the USOC had its hands tied at this point because the judge was definitely going to come down on the side of Harding. That's the way I read the decision.
I think let's also remember that the USOC in its statement last night pointedly did not find her innocent. It said this incident still concerns us, and then we have a lot of problems with it, and the issues of sportsmanship are still there. And I think that they were not absolving her of anything. They just decided that they had to get on with this. It really was becoming an enormous distraction.
And I think they were surprised and overwhelmed by all of it, too. Let's face it, the U.S. Olympic Committee is an organization in Colorado Springs, Colorado. They are not used to dealing with these issues. Now they've got professionals in the Olympics. It's the Amateur Sports Act. They've got to make a lot of changes.
Well, you all three told me this is a story that's been your life since January. Well, not January 6th was the incident, and you followed it from that point on. About January 12th was when we found out there could be an involvement there from the Harding side. Where does the story go from here now, with them not competing until February 23rd?
Well, the story obviously is what kind of one-upsmanship you're going to see on the rink in practice. There is often one-upsmanship in practices. Midori Ito had a collision in the World Championships with somebody a few years ago. Surya Bonali did backflips in Midori Ito's face in Albertville in '92. It'll be interesting to see if anybody tries any one-upsmanship, because if Tonya gets too close to Nancy, everybody's going to scream.
It was interesting. Neither one backed down. I mean, either one of them could have opted to skate at a different venue in practice, and neither one took that decision.
Although we might see the U.S. Olympic Committee still try to separate them in terms of the 4 practice sessions that they do have to get them apart, because it's potentially a very incendiary situation.
Let me ask each of you, before we go, who will this affect more? Who will have the most pressure now the rest of the way, Kerrigan or Harding? Christine?
It's a good question. I guess I would say Kerrigan, because she's got to deal with the person who allegedly was involved in a plot to injure her.
I think Kerrigan. Harding seems resistant to any kind of pressure.
Yeah, absolutely. And Harding seems like one of these tough kids from the street, and just she feels that she's just lucky to be here, and all the pressure is off her.
Ira, Phil, Christine, thank you. Appreciate your special insights on that story. We've also got our man on the street right now in Lillehammer gathering reaction to the Harding story. He's down on Main Street, the Storgata, of course. Here's James Brown. JB?
All right, Jimmy, thank you very much. And just like your panel of guests there's some very definitive opinions out here on the Storgata as well. Ron and Elaine Altman from Northern Westchester. Your thoughts about the recent developments?
I think that the due process aspect was served. That Tonya Harding should skate as long as she hasn't been convicted of anything. However, there is the issue of what the judges are likely to do. And that may be a completely different story. They may totally ignore due process and vote with their hearts. And I think that Kerrigan's scores may go up a little bit and Harding's scores may go down a little bit, simply because the judges are likely to take that into consideration regardless of what the courts or the Olympic Committee has to say.
So you think there will be some personal feelings expressed by the judges no matter their public demeanor. What about being an American with this ongoing saga? Does it affect you one way or the other?
Well, it would be much nicer if we had no controversy at all, but since there is some controversy, I would hope that all Americans just stood behind all their athletes and allowed the due process to take effect. I think both skaters should skate, obviously Nancy, but certainly Tonya should be allowed to skate, as she, I understand, is going to be.
Okay, and Bruce Marche from Rochester, New York. Again, you've had some very definitive thinking and feelings as well. What about the matter?
No, I think that anyone is responsible for the people that they employ and the people that they associate with, and that Tonya Harding is responsible for the activities that her people did. By the same token, Dorothy Hamill observed a few years ago that she was nearly run down at an event once by a coach and another person, and she said that this is the only time that Tonya will have that opportunity. She is innocent until proven guilty, and therefore I can understand the rationale behind her being able to skate.
And again, this continuing controversy, is it going to affect your enjoyment and appreciation of the rest of the Olympic competitions?
Absolutely not. We're having a fantastic time. We had fortunate to get to see Norway versus Russia last night, and we're seeing USA versus France in a little while, so absolutely no impact whatsoever.
All right, folks, continue to enjoy yourselves out here on the Storgata. Thank you very much. Let's go back to the studio and Andrea Joyce.